Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, 𝗥𝗲𝘀𝘀𝘀. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 327. Does everything deserve your depth? If you've ever found yourself grumbling to no one in particular about how someone stole your energy, or you were somehow sucked into a level of vulnerability you weren't ready for, this episode is for you. And it's also for me because I've been there too, and I know how cruel a vulnerability hangover can be. You see, it's all too easy in today's litigious climate to look for someone to blame, to point fingers at anyone but ourselves, and to make someone else wrong. But what if the responsibility sits with us as individuals? I realise that might leave some of us feeling rather uncomfortable, but what if we're both the problem and the answer? I know. The good news is that I won't leave you with this as a potential problem. That's really not how I work, so I'll offer potential solutions. And yes, potential because we're all different. But what I can't abide is people assuming that they are powerless. People rarely are, but so often get caught in a victim or martyr mindset. This episode then is about how we can feel and be actually pulled from pillar to post with everyone wanting a piece of us when we're struggling to hold ourselves together. It's at times like these that we need to practice being really discerning, because not everything we're presented with, invited to, or asked to contribute to deserves the depth and breadth of our focused attention. Now, discerning is a phrase I use often, but today I'm also going to unpack what I mean by it in this context. At its most basic, our being discerning is like an energy sum game, energy economics if you like, and most of us as introverts are masters at that subject, usually learned the hard way. But at its most complex, being discerning is genuinely a survival thing. If I'm not giving the right things the right amount of focused attention and energy according to my rules, burnout is on the horizon with all of the pain, trouble and despondency that causes. Some, and I'm talking about some dear to me and mine, reached such depths of despair and helplessness that the only way out they could see was to make a way out. I don't want people to feel that that is their only option, and what I'm talking about in this episode may well help. Throughout history, there have always been things vying for our attention, but never more so than right now, with our so-called smart gadgets getting us caught in the addiction of scrolling. So many TV channels, there were 2 when I was a child, and now we have the additional interference as we're bombarded with fake AI-generated images and stories. I have found it exhausting and ridiculously time-consuming to have to fact-check everything I'm seeing so I'm not taken in. The first time I realised that I'd been hooked by some cunning, unscrupulous individuals, I knew things had to change, initially in ways that don't align with who I am. You see, I'm a naturally trusting person. Some might say a marketeer's dream, which comes from my own value set. Because I would never deceive someone about who I am, what I do, or the results that I've achieved, I prefer to give others the benefit of the doubt. I've struggled all my life to understand why anyone would set out to deceive. Let me give you a current world example of this in action. It might feel like a bit of a detour from the topic, but I assure you it's relevant. I've said for some time now, and been heavily criticised for it, that those who demand people come back into the office because it's the only way to ensure their people are working properly are actually signalling their own behaviour when working from home. They're not looking at the output, the productivity or the well-being stats. They are saying loud and clear, "We don't trust you, you lazy skivers," because I don't trust myself. Now, marry that with the motivational posters you'll see around the offices, which say things like, "Our people are our greatest asset," and you'll feel both the irony and the incongruence. So what will people believe? The poster on the wall or the words, actions and intentions of the leaders? Yep, that's right, the latter. You see, part of the problem with incongruence and fakery is that people do notice. Understandably, in this situation, trust is diminished, and for we introverts, who typically deliver far greater results when we're working in a suitable environment, our engagement falls and our loyalty wanes. So let's bring it back to what deserves your depth. I've decided that in some ways, ongoing trust and respect are earned. Let's face it, it's unwise to keep trusting someone who repeatedly disrespects you and the trust you've shown them. In the same way, your depth is earned too. That may be quite a bold thing to say, but what are the alternatives? Become a doormat? Not my style anymore. And yes, anymore, because there was a time when I lacked confidence and self-worth and was grateful to anyone who wiped their feet on me. Show people that your boundaries are made of tissue paper or thin air, just like the emperor's new clothes? Nope, my boundaries are thoughtfully installed, well maintained and carefully managed. Wear a hair shirt or sackcloth and behave like a martyr? That's not a good look on me, and I've learned the importance of managing my energy rather than blaming others for stealing what I gave willingly. You see, if I offer my depth, my focus and my energy willy-nilly to all and sundry, not only am I showing I don't value me and what I bring to the table, it encourages others to value those things less too. I'm thinking of it now as earned access, and I'm careful about who and what I give the combination lock numbers to. And there's a bigger question that I realise I need to be asking, which is another reason to take a breath, a pause, a moment before committing to anything. The question? What level of self is both safe and optimal here? Because this is what being discerning in this context really means. Most of the time, people will get my public self, my professional demeanour, my considered advice and opinions, framed as such of course, and my quiet but intentional presence. This level of self is appropriate when I judge that my energies are unlikely to be reciprocated or likely to be inhaled as a dementor or energy vampire would. Then there will be times when I choose to allow my personal self to arrive at the gathering. This level of self shares very real stories from my past, personal frustrations that are still present, and the hopes I hold in my heart for the future I am actively creating. People will feel they're getting to know the real me when they meet this personal self, the me beyond the niceties, where they also experience my empathy, compassion and wisdom. Then, those special ones with the combination lock numbers will get to experience my tender, sacred self. This level of self is prepared to share things that I don't yet fully understand myself. They get to see the messy middle I'm navigating. There's always a messy middle. This is a whole different level of vulnerability and is reserved for those who appreciate what they are witness to and who treasure it. Thinking this through has helped me to realise something fundamental, and that is, I frequently allow my tender, sacred self to show up when I'm on my own, crafting a podcast, designing and recording a course, or writing an article. So it's only those I meet face to face or energetically online who need the right combination. Here's where it gets really interesting though, and where the hair shirts of martyrdom get an airing. If I choose to give public level situations and people access to my tender, sacred self, I'm not being robbed. I'm giving away the farm and blaming the lucky recipients. A new mantra or supportive affirmation I'll be using is as follows. I don't need to allow everyone full access to me to be and feel fully myself. So from now on, the first thing I'll do consciously, and I suspect it's been subconscious until now, is to determine what level of situation, person, or people I'm in the company of. This will help me to decide what level of self is appropriate to bring forward. Being discerning is not about being cold, aloof, or standoffish. It's about being guarded and defensive, but for the right reasons. And that's because my tender, sacred self is not a day spa dishing out complimentary passes. If I've left a door open and people walk in, that's my bad. So what level of self I allow people to experience is entirely within my control. And the really interesting times are when what starts as a public convening opens into a conversation involving the personal self before finally morphing into a gathering of the sacred with all the tenderness and vulnerability that brings. It just needs the right combination, which will include sufficient psychological safety, reciprocated trust, and positive intention. And it's always your choice, as no one can make you reveal a level of self without your willing consent. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us, and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
You are listening to an Intentional Media Production podcast.